Hi, my name is Adrienne, and I will be talking to you about the 7 strategies of assessments and learning. And my focus is really going to be at the primary level. I chose this focus because I do teach primary, and I felt like the book had a lot of great options available for primary teachers. So the first thing we're going to talk about is formative assessment. Biggest takeaways that we have to understand is that it's happening while students are learning, not at the very end. The reason being is we want our diagnostic feedback that we get from the formative assessment to really help us drive next steps for the students moving forward as they gain more insight towards the learning goal themselves. So strategy 1 discusses the learning goals or learning targets as they use. Biggest thing we need to understand about that is that it needs to be kid-friendly at the primary level. However, we do not want to sacrifice those academic vocabulary words. So one option that a fellow coworker of mine gave was the fact that she still includes that academic vocabulary, however, either above or below in a different color marker or however you may write them, just writing the kid-friendly terms and having kids help to kind of define those words in ways that they'll understand then. Another option is also to use images as well, and that'll work especially well with ELs. Strategy 2 talks about using examples. This is a lot of modeling because kids don't really know how to kind of grade each other's work. So it's helpful to have kind of rubrics shown, not just having a rubric that they follow, but kind of having a guideline like you can see up here, knowing what a 1, 2, 3, or 4 would look like. Weak examples is one that I really struggle with, but I did find this bump it up wall, which I thought was great. So that's another kind of take on showing weak examples. Strategy 3 talks about the feedback. So this is where students are giving each other feedback as well as teachers giving students feedback. So praise is huge, but you need to make sure that you're praising the learning outcomes versus the learner itself. So the 2 stars and a wish is an option. When you look at students giving each other feedback, sentence starters is key. That way they have something to look at and be able to kind of repeat when necessary. Strategy 4 talks about self-assessment and goal setting. This is one I've recently started implementing more into my classroom, just making sure that all kids understand the learning goal is the first and foremost thing. So using checklists of some sort, stars and stairs. These are some other ideas. However, I do find that when you self-assess, it should be more individualized and not something that's posted so that everyone can kind of see where each other's at. Because a lot of times we find students, especially at a primary level, just follow their friends. So the stars and stairs method for self-assessing is where stars are put on their paper when they feel comfortable doing something, they feel confident, they are kind of at that mastery level and they can demonstrate it very well. The stairs, we talked to our kids about how it's kind of leading up to the top of the staircase where you always want to be. So stairs are okay. Strategy 5 is determining the next steps. So it's really looking at those errors. In order to know the errors, we have to know the standards and the curriculum. And we also have to know what questions to ask in order to pull out what those errors and misconceptions might be. So it's really knowing your math, your reading, your social studies, your science, all those content areas very well, and knowing how to find those misconceptions. Strategy 6 talks about designing the focused instruction. This is where the kids are practicing. So it needs to be structured, it needs to be deliberate. A lot of collaboration occurs at this level, and it may sound really loud in your classroom, but that's okay. Graphic organizers are one way that you can really help your students to work on something. It kind of helps at the primary level to really organize their thought processes and kind of keep it in an organized fashion. The biggest thing to understand about strategy 6 is that mistakes are okay. So primary kids need to practice making mistakes and understanding that it's perfectly fine. Strategy 7 is the tracking and reflecting. So this is where they're able to kind of track their success and then talk about it. So there was some great ideas from the book that really worked with a primary level that you can see here. Portfolios was another example, which really leads to a great conversation between teacher and student, kind of that conferencing mindset. To conclude the presentation, there are 2 things that your classroom needs to have in order to really implement these strategies with ease and with confidence, and our students are able to really use them effectively. And that's growth mindset is one, so understanding that mistakes are okay. And then also that classroom culture. When we talk about kids giving feedback and whatnot, we want kids to feel comfortable making mistakes and comfortable talking to each other. So that is my presentation on the 7 strategies at a primary level. Hope you enjoy.